Welcome back to the Kentuckiana Hoops podcast. On this episode, we're going to discuss all the NBA players who played high school ball in Kentucky and Indiana. So to start off, we're going to start with four guys from Kentucky. So we have Ray Spalding from Trinity High School, D'Angelo Russell, who started his high school career at Central and went to Montverde, Keelan Martin, who played at Ballard, and Rajon Rondo, who played at Eastern and Oak Hill. So let's start with Ray.
Ray Spalding, of course, he's from Trinity. He played at Trinity. 6'10", lengthy. He was a great high school player at Trinity.
Right, and then he went on to U of L. He had he kind of was during that tumultuous time at U of L where he had Padgett his junior year, he had Patino his first 2 years, and he absolutely tore it up his junior year. I mean, I wish he'd stayed for his senior year. I think he would have probably been a first-round pick if he'd stayed for his senior year. But
I do agree. He really did ball that junior year. But I think it was a good choice to go ahead and get to the league because you don't want to risk injury, I think.
Right. While he's been in the league, he was drafted by the Dallas Mavericks. He's played for the Suns, the Hawks, the Mavericks, and the Charlotte Hornets, where he is currently. Next, we'll talk about D'Angelo Russell, who's probably
one of the best to ever come out of Kentucky.
Yeah. He played at Central for a year, so his high school time in Louisville isn't overly extensive, but I mean he played in Kentucky, so everyone wishes he would have played his high school ball at Louisville or UK, or his college ball, but
he ended up going to Ohio State,
where he was a beast.
He was a beast.
He went
second overall in the draft.
Second overall,
right behind Ben Simmons.
No, he was right behind Carlton Towns. Ben Simmons was the year after.
Oh, okay, my fault.
But he took that Ohio State team. They were like a 10 seed, I think, and he took them to the Sweet 16. And he was like the only guy on that team.
Yeah, and I love his game because his passing is unmatched. And also myself being a lefty, I got to be a fan of his because he's got a nice lefty stroke and
And he's confident. I mean, He's got the ice in his veins. Do you remember when he was at Ohio State and they were like, "Why do you wear number 0?" And he's like, "That's because the amount of people that can guard me."
Yeah.
And
you got to respect it.
Yeah.
You got to respect it.
And he's a one-time All-Star. He was an All-Star with the Brooklyn Nets. This past season, he was with the Warriors and the Timberwolves. He didn't really get to find his role with the Warriors because they were really bad. And the same thing with the Timberwolves. But look for him next year to probably make a second All-Star game as he teams up with Karl-Anthony Towns.
Right. And next, let's hop right into Keelan Martin, who actually played at your alma mater now, I guess, Ballard, who's as a powerhouse. And he was teamed up with Quentin Snyder, who went to U of L.
Right. Quentin Snyder was the Mr. Basketball with Keelan.
Right. They also had Jalen Perry.
Right. That was
he was young, though.
He was young. But the year before, they had Levon Holland. It was 2013. They had Levon Holland, who ended up playing at NKU. Keelan, Quentin, they were loaded.
Right, loaded.
They lost to Madison Central on a buzzer beater in the state final game. But yeah.
But they should have won it. They were stacked across the board.
Well, Keelan, he went to Butler. He was kind of under-recruited out of high school, but went to Butler. Second all-time leading scorer in Butler history. I mean, he had an excellent career at Butler. He played under a couple different coaches. He played under Chris Holtman at Butler and LaVall Jordan, but he was an outstanding player at Butler. This was actually his rookie year in the NBA, but he had a year overseas prior to this year. So he's had some pro experience.
For a time, I didn't think he was going to make it to the league just because he was always spectrum of was he on a team or was he on a two-way or because I always saw him playing in the summer league.
Right, he was in the summer league for the Jazz.
Trying to make a team or the same team that he played previously. So he was always a fringe guy, but I'm glad he's finally made it.
Yeah.
And then next, let's hop into one of Kentucky's finest ever is Rajon Rondo. Went to Eastern, transferred over to Oak Hill
for his senior year.
Yep. And then
he's an NBA champion.
Yeah, with the Celtics.
Yep, and he's gonna have a great shot with the Lakers this year. I mean,
for sure.
Once COVID's over, or not once COVID's over, but once it kicks back off July 30th when they start, I mean, the Lakers have to be the favorites. LeBron, AD. I mean,
again, loaded across the board.
Loaded across the board, yeah. But Rajon could potentially be a 2 or 3 time NBA champion by the time his career is over, and he's done a lot for the community. He's been an awesome part of the Louisville community.
Yeah, he's definitely built it, and I mean, he puts on the Rondo camp almost yearly.
Yep.
And he's just great with the kids and really helps.
He does
out.
a lot of charity work too. Yeah, he's a great guy, and I mean, he was an All-Star a couple times. I remember in the East back when he was playing for the Celtics. I mean, he's a great passer. Everyone raves about his passing, but yeah. So now we're gonna move on. So those are the 4 Kentucky guys. Now we're gonna move on to the Indiana guys, and we're gonna start with Romeo Langford.
Yeah, how could you not start with him? He's got a court named after him.
Right.
Indiana.
And he's the most recent guy. Like, you remember Romeo from a couple years ago. Like, Romeo's been on the scene for years if you're in Kentuckiana, a hoops fanatic like we are. Like, everyone knows Romeo Langford. He was Michael Jordan to New Albany 2 years ago.
In Indiana. Everywhere he went, the gym was standing room only.
I remember his senior year, like, seeing videos of him having to sign autographs for 2 to 3 hours after the game. Just, like, people were so obsessed with this guy. He had no privacy.
Yeah, I mean, everything. People were always around him, wanted to be around. I mean, in his position, talking to a man a couple weeks ago, he just didn't know who to trust. Because there's so many people telling him so many different things because he, like you said, he was the Michael Jordan of Indiana.
Right.
Even over here, kids... he was actually going to come over to St. X, I'm pretty sure, but it ended up not working out. Him and Sean East.
Yeah.
But that didn't work out, so they stayed at New Albany. But I mean, even kids here in Louisville looked up to them. People from Louisville went over to New Albany to watch their games.
Right, and I mean, you have to be a really good high school player to get your jersey retired ever. To get your jersey retired as soon as you're done, that's a different level.
Almost unheard of.
Yeah. That is unheard of. All right, so another IU guy, Yogi Ferrell, 4-year guy at IU. He's playing for the Sacramento Kings right now. I mean, Yogi is as big of a staple at IU basketball in the last 10 years as anybody else. I mean, he's right up there with Victor Oladipo, Cody Zeller. Like, Yogi's been just as big of a part of that program as anybody else in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guard, smaller guard, but
right.
I mean, he's got a big build on him. Again, I thought he was always going to be kind of on the fringe of
the NBA, right?
NBA or overseas,
right? But he's entering I think this is his 3rd year in the league, and he's really found a role. I mean,
he has. He's really been upping his game.
He can score. He can play the point. He's kind of
because he was playing with the Mavs, some I know, and he was doing well with the Mavs,
right,
for a time.
Yep. He was with the Mavs. Yeah. He went to Park Tudor in Indiana, which, I mean, they produce ballers.
Yeah, there's a lot coming out of there. And we'll get to a couple of them and touch on them later.
Yeah, so we're going to stick with the IU guys. Eric Gordon, North Central product. He's been around the league. He played for the Clippers, the Pelicans, the Rockets. But he's really found a role with the Rockets.
What I like about him is kind of like sort of similar to Rondo. He has his own AAU team, EG3 or EG10.
EG10, yeah.
My fault. And he just gives that to the community. I mean, he's getting these kids. EG10 is a legit program over there in Indiana.
Right.
It's right there with.
Are they a Adidas Gauntlet program?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not wholly sure what circuit they run on, but I mean, they're right up there usually. They're right below Indiana Elite, Indiana Heats.
Yeah.
So they're elite. They're elite.
Right. But yeah, I mean, he's gonna have a chance. They're gonna have a chance to win it all this year, especially with everyone being off. The Rockets are gonna have a chance. The way they play small is different. I mean, they put PJ Tucker at center, so they've got a 6'6" center, but they spread the floor like no one else has ever done in the NBA. They shoot more threes than anyone else has ever done, and I mean, Eric Gordon's the perfect guy for that because he is lights out, absolutely lights out.
Lights out.
And he likes to play alongside Harden and Westbrook, and they're totally comfortable finding him and letting him just...
Right, he can hang out in the corner, do his thing, hang out, they hit him, knockdown.
Right, and he likes to move without the ball, too. He cuts, he can come off screens and get it.
He's actually, people just see him for his shooting, but, dude, to play in the league, he's good at everything.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He's really good at everything.
Yeah, no question.
He's more than just a spot-up shooter.
All right, Gary Harris...
Michigan
State guy. He played at Hamilton Southeastern. He's playing for the Denver Nuggets. He's the starting 2 guard alongside Jamal Murray, who went to Kentucky. He can really shoot it. He really does a lot of things well for them. He's just a guy who puts it all together for the Nuggets.
Right.
He defends. He does whatever they need him to do.
That is true. And to rewind a little bit just about his college career at Michigan State, had a really good career there.
Yeah.
How long was he there?
I think he was a 3 or 4 year guy.
I think so. I was going to say 3, I thought.
Yeah.
But, I mean, shot it well. I think he led them to the tournament twice.
Well, I mean, they were in the tournament all 3 years he was there, but yeah, he was like the main guy in a couple of teams, yeah.
But he's an all-around guy. I just really like his game. He's got confidence, a lot of confidence. I'm a fan.
Yeah, and I mean, the Nuggets are another team that are going to potentially make a deep playoff run. I mean, it's so up in the air with, like, everyone's been off for 3 months, so it's kind of like, who's going to win?
Who's been doing their workouts? Who's been lifting? Who's been conditioning? Who's been in the gym? You know?
And, I mean, remember how before quarantine, everyone was like, the Lakers are clicking right now. They beat the Bucks. They beat the Clippers same weekend, the 2 other best teams in the league. And everyone's like, the Lakers are really clicking. Their chemistry is tight. But these guys haven't seen each other. They haven't played together in months. Right. I mean...
Will it still be there?
Exactly. So, I mean, any of those teams that are going to be down there, all 22 teams, in my opinion, have a chance to win it. I think you can obviously say there's going to be favorites, but this year is different than any other year that's ever happened.
And again, it's the NBA. Like, who's going to have a good night,
Right. But with that being said, it's not like March Madness where it's one game and you can get upset.
It's a 7-game series.
There's still 7-game series, but yeah.
Next, let's move on to...
the pride of Brownsburg, Indiana.
Yeah, Gordon Hayward.
While at Butler, he took them to the national title game. They were... Yeah. Remember that shot?
Yeah, from half.
Oh, my God. They were inches away from beating Duke in the national title game.
I know. Honestly, would have loved to seen it. Would have loved to see
Everyone would have. A mid-major like that, overcoming the blue blood of blue bloods in college basketball, that is like the best it can be. And actually, his teammate while at Butler that year was Shelvin Mack, who played at Bryan Station in Lexington, who played in the league for a little bit, but he's out of the league now. But Hayward was an all-star for the Jazz one time before he left to go to join the Celtics in free agency.
And he actually got hurt.
Right. He had that gruesome injury a couple of years ago on opening night, yeah.
And I think he just returned a couple of weeks before...
No. He returned last year. This is his second year back.
Yeah.
But he's playing for his college head coach. Brad Stevens was at Butler, and now he's at Boston, which is I think that's a pretty cool story. George Hill is another guy who has his own AAU team, right?
Yeah.
What are they called?
I think it's...
GH3. That's where you got the 3 from for the Eric Gordon thing.
Yes.
GH3, yeah. George Hill...
I think it's just G3.
G3?
It's one of the two. They're not as of a well-known program,
right?
But they're still very good.
Yeah.
I know their middle school and their elementary teams used to be top-notch.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, George Hill played at Broad Ripple, and then he went on to IUPUI. So he was actually a low-major guy. Like, a lot of people didn't see him as the player that he's turned out to be.
Right. I mean, who would have thought he would have gone from Broad Ripple to IUPUI to the league and stayed in the league for several years?
And I mean, as an Indiana guy, he got to play for the Pacers. He was playing a big role for those Pacers teams. Remember the ones that would battle the Heat back in the day? Back in the day, that was like 6 years ago or so.
Yeah,
but,
when they had LeBron and D-Wade and Chris Bosh.
Yeah, he was a key guy in those teams. Demetrius Jackson, he's actually not in the league, but he played at Notre Dame, went to Marion High School. He's been in and out of the league. He's played a little bit in the past year. Like he'll play a couple games every year. But he's with the South Bay Lakers.
Right, and while at Notre Dame, I mean, he was their man.
Beast.
He was their man.
At first, remember Jerry and Grant?
Yes.
So Jerry and Grant was the man his junior year, but the next year, Demetrius Jackson was the guy, like no question. And Demetrius Jackson balled.
And I'm pretty sure he was a teammate with Pat Connaughton.
Yep, Pat Connaughton.
And he's now playing in
those Notre Dame teams were actually really good. I remember watching Louisville Notre Dame games in the ACC, and those would be great games year after year after year. I don't know if you remember the 5 overtime game at Notre Dame. That game was nuts. I mean, Jerian Grant was the guy that game, but I mean, Demetrius Jackson was there. I think Pat Connaughton was there. Some real ballers. All right, next we're gonna move on to Courtney Lee. He went to Pike and he played at WKU.
Just talk about Pike real quick.
Mm-hmm.
They've produced a lot.
They have
kind of like Park Tudor.
Well, Indiana. I mean,
Indiana
high school basketball is just different. Like we're Kentucky boys, but I mean, there's nothing like Indiana high school basketball.
They eat it, live it, breathe it. I mean, everything there is basketball.
I am perfectly happy being the second best high school basketball state in the country. I mean, I think Indiana and Kentucky basketball in high school is unmatched. Like, there's no region or two states that do it better than Indiana and Kentucky. Just to step away from Courtney Lee real quick. But, I mean, Courtney Lee went and played his high school ball at Pike, then came to Kentucky because Kentucky's a basketball state.
Right.
Played at Western, had a really good career there, and then has been in the league for a minute. He was on, do you remember those Magic teams that were really good with Dwight Howard?
When Dwight was a beast.
Right, before Dwight's back problems. He was just killing it for the Magic. He was starting at the 2 for him. He started in the finals against the Lakers when Kobe won his 4th ring. But yeah, and he's just kind of bounced around the league ever since. But he's kind of been all over the place, but he's had a good career.
Right. Next, E'Twaun Moore played at Central over in Indiana, and then pursued his career at Purdue, and now he's currently playing with the Pelicans alongside Zion.
Right. E'Twaun Moore has been in the league, I feel like, or at least forever. But I mean, I feel like he's been for the Pelicans like the whole time. I think I know he shoots the lights out of it.
Yes. Well, he's never a guy that you're just like, wow, E'Twaun Moore.
Yeah.
But he's just like, he's a good role player for whatever team he's on.
Yeah.
But like, he does a lot of, like, he shows up on the stat sheet, but he does a lot of other stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's why he fits in the NBA.
Yep. I mean, you gotta, to be an NBA player for that many years, you have to have something you're known for. You know what I mean?
Right.
And E'Twaun Moore is known for
shooting,
and his ability to be a good teammate and fit in with other pieces.
And I think, besides talking about players, I think the thing in the NBA is every team's going to have their 1 or 2 All-Stars. You know?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but after that, you can't have 6 All-Stars on one team. You got to have role players.
Right, and you got to have guys that want to win and aren't trying to take the shine from.
They're willing to take less shots and not show up as much on the stat sheet.
Exactly.
And have the best jersey sales. They're just there to win.
Yep. 100%.
Like JJ Redick shoots the lights out, right? But he's a great role player.
He knows his role. He's
Exactly.
not going to go fight. If he was on the Lakers, for example, he's not going to go fight LeBron for shots. He knows his role. He's going to get 10 or 12 3-point attempts a game. He might not take a 2-pointer for like a week in a row, but he's going to get his 10 3-point shots a game. All right. Mason Plumlee, he's got 2 brothers, Marshall Plumlee and Miles Plumlee. Miles was in the NBA for a little bit. Marshall played at Duke his senior year a little bit, but that was about it for Marshall. All 3 went to Duke. He went to Warsaw Community in Indiana, and he's currently playing for the Denver Nuggets, and he's backing up probably the best center in the league in Nikola Jokic. While at Duke, I mean, they were year after year after year. I mean, they were a number 1 team in the country. So he's been around a winning program. Yeah,
he's always been a winner. I think he's like, what, 6'10", 6'11"?
I think he's 7 foot.
Maybe.
But
yeah, he's always been a winning program. He's a hustle guy.
Yeah. Like he rebounds really hard.
He's super tall, but it's not like he's super skilled. He's got the height, and that's why he's in the league.
He actually shoots it better than you think.
Probably. But I mean, he's not, overall, like, he's not insanely skilled.
Right, yeah.
But, like, just his hustle, and of course his height helps, but his hustle.
And he's got a good body. He's not like a super skinny dude. Like, he's got a good muscular build, yeah.
Like, he just fits the mold of, like, a good center that's a role player.
Yeah. Glenn Robinson III. He played at Michigan, went to Lake Central High. He's the son of Glenn Robinson, who was a really, really good NBA player. He plays for the 76ers. He was on that team, the Michigan team that went to the finals with Trey Burke and where Spike Albright went off in that game.
Yep.
Mitch McGarry was on that team, but yeah.
Fun fact about that, real quick, just to talk about Louisville basketball, college, the University of Louisville basketball. Spike.
I saw that he's going to be GA.
He's going to be a graduate assistant.
Yep. That's crazy how that works, man.
It is.
But yeah, so Glenn Robinson won a dunk contest 2 years ago. He's currently playing for the Sixers. And he actually had a pretty big role for him this year because he was one of their few guys that could shoot threes. They were so big, they struggled to shoot threes, but Glenn had a role because he could stretch the floor for him.
Right. Quick little thing, unpopular opinion right here, but in 2K, I love to use Glenn Robinson III. Because I love to be Ben Simmons, kick it out to the corner, money.
Yep. Because, I mean, when you're playing with the Sixers in 2K, this is completely off the wall, but you have to get shooting. You got to take Al Horford out. You got to get shooting on there. So, yeah, I agree with you. All right, anyway, Jeff Teague, who went to Pike, is one of the all-time greatest players in Wake Forest history. He was an all-star 1 year with the Atlanta Hawks, went to the Timberwolves, was on the Timberwolves. He was the Timberwolves starting point guard for a couple years.
Right. His brother, Marquise Teague, played at Kentucky, University of Kentucky.
And he was a first-round pick and went to the Bulls.
Right.
He fizzled.
He's not out anymore. I don't think he's in the league anymore.
No, he's not.
And, I mean, if you're talking Jeff Teague at Wake Forest, like the best guards that come through there, he's right there with Chris Paul.
Right. Oh, no question. Yeah. I mean, plus Wake Forest is an ACC program, but they've had like 3 or 4 dudes that are really, really legit. Like Wake Forest, I think Steve Forbes is going to turn that place around. Like, yes. I mean, he's a JUCO guy, Northwest Florida State. I mean, he turned it around at ETSU. I think they were going to make a deep tournament run this year if they had a tournament. But
for sure.
Steve Forbes is going to get some JUCO guys in there. They're going to win. They're going to win quick.
Yes.
But back to Jeff Teague. He's back with the Atlanta Hawks, playing alongside or behind Trae Young a little bit. But yeah, so we're going to move on to Caleb Swanigan.
I mean, man, if you're talking, power forwards that are big but can move, he's definitely one I'm going to talk about because he's big and he can move. Like he's mobile on his feet.
Have you heard the stories about him? When he was a kid, they called him Biggie, and he was like 6'5", 300 pounds in like 6th grade. So they had him like working out, getting in shape, and then he turned into, he was an All-American his second year at Purdue. And now he's in his second or third year in the league, playing for the Trailblazers.
Yeah. He's done well.
Yeah.
He's done well with the Blazers. I know him.
He's had limited minutes, kind of playing behind Hassan Whiteside, Yusuf Nurkic, and Zach Collins, but he's gotten more of an opportunity this year since Myers Leonard left for Miami.
And it's crazy just because, you do see a lot of big men with like a good soft touch, but you don't see, that's not super often that it'll come around in college and you get a 6'11" power forward, that can knock down a 3-ball.
Right.
And it looks pure. And he was one of those guys. And then he could also take it to the post and had a nice little post hook.
He was a beast in the post. Cody Zeller, I remember him at IU. The hype around the IU team was crazy that year. I remember it was Kentucky number 1, Indiana number 2, and Louisville number 3 preseason. Remember that?
Yep.
The hype around Kentuckiana basketball was crazy. But Cody Zeller went to Washington High in Indiana, played at IU. Was a lottery pick. He was like 11th or so to the Hornets, and
and he's still with them.
He's still with them. There's not much really to talk about. He hasn't been an All-Star. The Hornets have been terrible his career. Like, it's not his fault, but yeah. All right. Anyway,
next is Dylan Windler, who played at Perry Meridian. Then went on to Belmont.
He shoots the crap out of the ball.
Definitely.
He averaged like 22 points a game his senior year at Belmont. He really, and they won the OVC. No, they didn't, because Murray State won the OVC. But they were an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament. And then he was a first-round pick to the Cavs. So he had a really great career at Belmont. I think he balled last summer league too. I didn't really keep up with the Cavs this year because they were awful.
Right, me neither. I didn't keep up with him. But I do remember him at Belmont just, lighting it up, especially, like you said, his senior year.
Yeah. So we just had talked about Cody Zeller, but now we're going to talk about his brother Tyler, his older brother.
Who also went to Washington High.
Right. Played at UNC, not Indiana.
Yes.
I remember...
Which shocked me because I didn't think he would leave in the state of Indiana.
Right, but I remember the battles between Tyler Zeller and the Plumlee brothers, which is like Indiana all full circle, but you get it up in North Carolina in the biggest rivalry in college basketball. So I remember that was cool. He has spent a little bit of time in the G League and the NBA. He was most recently with the Denver Nuggets, but currently is a free agent. So next we'll talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. He played at Park Tudor and La Lumiere, and he's a Memphis Grizzly right now.
Yes.
He played at Michigan State alongside, who was the other guy they had? Miles Bridges, who's with the Hornets.
Yes.
They were a pretty good squad, and he was the third overall pick to the Grizzlies.
Yes.
Yeah, because DeAndre Ayton was one, and Marvin Bagley was two.
Yep. So, he was right there with them. Had a great one season at Michigan State.
Yeah, and he's looked really, really promising in the NBA so far. And playing alongside Ja Morant, him and Ja are going to be a really, really good dynamic duo.
Yes. Yeah, I can't wait to see a little pick and roll action with those two.
Right, because Jaren Jackson can pop.
Yes.
He can shoot.
There's so much to his game. And he's a player that is in the NBA, but he's got so much more room to improve.
Oh, yeah. And he's so long. He can block shots. He's really good defensively. He can finish lobs. He's everything you want in a modern-day big. Right. I think he's going to be really, really good.
And next, let's get to a guy who won a national championship at the NCAA level, Kyle Guy.
Well, he went from the highest of high, or the lowest of lows to the highest of highs. I remember
they lost to UMBC.
Right, the year before, first ever number one seed to get upset.
Yep.
And then the next year they were number one seed again, and they won it all. He played at Lawrence Central. He was an Indiana elite kid.
Yeah.
He could ball in high school.
Yes.
He could ball at Virginia, no question. But he could ball in high school. He was really good. And then for this last year for the Sacramento Kings, he was on a two-way deal. So he was up with the Kings. He was down in the G League, but he had a really good season in the G League. And in Sacramento, he got limited opportunities, but he looked good in the opportunities he had. Next, we have Trey Lyles. Arsenal Tech High.
Went on to play for the University of Kentucky under Coach Cal Perry.
Right, he's actually a guy who fits into both categories because he was born in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes.
So, and then moved to Indiana. But either state can claim him, but he kind of was a disappointment at first. He was drafted to the Nuggets.
Yeah, and he didn't do anything for the first season or two.
He's with the Spurs now. He's starting to build a role for the Spurs this past year.
Yeah, I think this past season he kind of gloomed a little bit, and I think he's a promising player here in the next 3-4 seasons.
Yeah, he's definitely going to have a role in the NBA. He's a big who can kind of handle it a little bit.
Shoots it well.
Does different stuff, yeah. He's good at everything, a master of done, and that's especially at that size, being 6'10", if you're good at everything, you can have a long NBA career.
Right. Next is Trayvon Blewett, who played at Xavier.
And Park Tudor, another Park Tudor guy.
Yeah, dude, they just produce.
Well, so this past season, he had a 10-day contract with Utah Jazz. He did not get signed further than that, but because he had the 10-day contract, I decided to include him.
But he had a really good career at Xavier.
Right. He did. He was there.
I think that just tells you, he was outstanding at Xavier, and I think that just tells you, he couldn't even make it in the NBA this past season. So that just tells you how good you have to be to play at that level.
The NBA is a different level, no question. He actually played for Chris Mack, who is Louisville's head coach now.
Yes.
But yeah. So last on that we're going to talk about today is Mike Conley, who spent a period of his career as the highest paid player in the NBA. He has never been an All-Star. He made it to the Western Conference Finals with the Memphis Grizzlies, and he is now with the Utah Jazz. And he played his high school ball at Lawrence North and his college ball at Ohio State. He's kind of been one of those guys that early in his career, everyone felt was kind of under-respected and not appreciated. But as his career went on, he's kind of just stayed the same player, and he really hasn't gotten a lot better or changed his game in a lot of ways.
And again, he's another, kind of like D'Angelo Russell, he's another lefty, went to Ohio State, so there might be a little thing there. Lefties in Ohio State from Indiana.
Well, D'Angelo Russell's from Kentucky, but from Kentuckiana.
Oh, yes.
But, yeah, I mean, Mike Conley has had a really good NBA career, and he's made a ton of money. I mean, I remember his deal.
He's been in there for years.
This is
he's
next
had a
year,
really good
the
career.
last year of his deal. His deal was 5-year, $152 million.
Wow.
That's nuts.
But he's been around forever.
Right.
Really good player. Ever since he left college, he's always been in the league. Never had to really fight for a contract. It was always just kind of like, if he was in the I don't know if he's ever been in the free agency, but I assume he has.
He was. That's when he got that 5-year, 152. But he got it from the Grizzlies.
But yeah, he's never really, he's always had the opportunity because he's always had a good career.
Right. And while at Ohio State, he played with Greg Oden, who ended up being the number 2 pick for the Blazers. And there's so many what-ifs about Greg Oden. Everyone wanted Greg Oden to be this next great big man, but he didn't pan out because of injuries.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's everyone in the NBA currently from Kentucky or Indiana.
I mean, that's NBA only, though. So to all our listeners, though, if you want to learn more, just look up players playing professional basketball from Kentucky or Indiana. There's so many dudes. So many dudes that play overseas. I mean, Leroy Hickerson did. There's Jazz Ferguson.
Right. Quentin Snyder. I mean, it goes on.
It goes, yeah. There's...
And I mean, what's crazy is in the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot more guys added to the list. I mean, Jay Scrubb's going to have a really good chance to get added to the list. This is just from Louisville. David Johnson. I mean, another guy, Justin Powell, is going to have a really good chance. So this is just currently, and we want to kind of do this episode as the NBA is starting to return in a couple days, really, a couple weeks. So we kind of wanted to give our listeners a little bit of NBA content to satisfy the NBA thirst that's everyone's feeling right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, we haven't watched basketball on TV in a while, man. So the NBA coming back, a lot of people don't watch the NBA, but I know I'll be tuned in. And I also, to all listeners, today, Friday, the TBT starts. So I advise all of you to tune into that. It's going to be really good basketball, and also the first basketball you've watched on TV in a while.
And there are a lot of good players in that. A lot of pros from overseas.
Yes.
The only rule is for the TBT, they can't be NBA players.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot of G League, overseas. Ballers. That
component of pro basketball gets nowhere near the appreciation it deserves from the general public. There is really good basketball all over the world.
Yes.
And people don't appreciate it. But, I mean, it is what it is.
Right. Yep. Well, I mean, I guess that's all we have for today. But thank you for everyone for tuning in, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Kentuckiana Hoops Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Kentuckiana Hoops Podcast. This is Cole Thompson.
And I'm Noah Breitenstein. Make sure to check out our website at www.kentuckianahoops.net. This website features exclusive content found nowhere else, which includes boys and girls classes 2021 through 2024, player profiles, recruiting information, highlights, stats, watch lists, and much more. For only $10 a month for the year, you have access to exclusive content found only on our website. Just go to www.kentuckianahoops.net.
Also, follow us on Twitter at KYINHoops and Instagram at Kentuckiana Hoops. Thank you. Hoops. Thank you. Because none of us